Tyranids, the Great Devourer, the Hive, Doom. It is said they are not of this galaxy. In fact, it is fully unknown where they originate. These apex predators travel in incomprehensibly large packs called hive fleets. Using living ship organisms, they float through space, devouring anything in their path. The Tyranids are a xenospecies with extreme adaptability, being able to go through evolutionary changes in the span of mere days after being exposed to a certain environment. They come in many shapes and sizes, and are all led by something called the hive mind, a horrifyingly powerful and mysterious entity or consciousness that controls the swarms through synapse creatures. The synapse is a psychic link shared between what one may consider to be a alpha creature or pack leader, which is used to relay orders to the mass of mindless monsters. This synapse allows the hives to collectively make snap decisions and work more as a single entity using its many muscles. Without this synaptic link, the majority of Tyranids will divulge to animalistic instinctive behavior, losing any sense of direction or order. The Tyranids almost always fight wars with overwhelming force, sending waves of alien flesh at the enemy. Using weapons that are grown from their own bodies, they shoot acidic vile and insects that burrow into one's flesh, along with many more horrifying living projectiles. Their main and seemingly only goal is consumption, and once upon a planet, they will ravage it until nothing is left. Through this consumption, they will absorb any useful genetic traits they find within the native species or the planet itself. Doing so, they adapt and evolve to further strengthen the hive, allowing them to survive in virtually any environment and discover the weakness in any foe. This alone makes them a horrifying foe to face. In order for the hive to continue producing troops, they need an organism called the Norn Queen. The Norn Queen is a sentient Tyranid bioform that resides within a massive chamber at the center of a hive fleet. Within this chamber, they receive biomass from reclamation pools that the Tyranid army will have created upon the invaded planet. They are responsible for every organism of Tyranid, as well as the decisions of adaptations within the organisms they produce. The Norn Queens are linked to each other through the hive mind and links to every Tyranid synapse creature, relaying their orders through them. It is said that the hive mind is a single entity, but the Norn Queens seem to almost make up part of it, although I am unsure if this hypothesis is sound. The Tyranids are a relatively new threat to the galaxy, only being discovered in the 41st millennium, and some rumors existing in the 35th. They were attracted to the galaxy by the Astronomicon, the Emperor's beacon for navigators to use to traverse the warp. The first encounter with the Tyranids was with Hive Fleet Behemoth upon the Battle for Macraig. Go watch my Tales from the Warp video on that to learn a bit more. The Tyranids use a very unique way of space travel, employing the use of organism ships called Narvhal. They bend space and time to create a sort of wormhole for the Tyranid fleet. Using monofilament spines, the Narvhal detects systems at extreme distances in some unknown manner. It then makes use of the origin star system's own gravity and creates a compressed space-time transit corridor through which the Narvhal and other Tyranid bioships can traverse interstellar distances. This process can extremely impact the system's gravity, causing tidal waves and other natural disasters all across the system if not prepared. This wave detection takes a considerable amount of time, so if seen early, a system can prepare and call for reinforcements or retreat before the Tyranids arrive. But once the Narvhals have discovered the planets, the way of travel is extremely quick. A very unique aspect of the Tyranids is something called the Shadow in the Warp. Unlike almost every other psychic being within the galaxy, the Tyranid psychers do not attract demonic entities. In fact, they do the opposite. Within a large area of the Hive Fleet, there will be a nulling effect to any connections to the Immaterium. As this effect waxes and wanes, it can make manifesting psychic powers extremely difficult for the defending forces. This also makes it almost impossible for astropaths to send messages or reinforcements. The invasion of a Hive Fleet can happen in many ways, but this is perhaps one of the more common approaches. First, the fleet sends forth small vanguard ships containing recon units and scouting organisms known as lictors and gene stealers. Both of these organisms will show a much higher need for self-preservation than any other Tyranids. They are extremely intelligent and seemingly somewhat independent and sentient. Lictors are audaciously stealthy. They can blend into any environment they are within, like that of a chameleon, as well as consuming the memories of any organism it eats. Using these traits, they gather intel of the planet itself and the biomatter upon it and relay this back to the Hive Fleet. Lictors are the perfect recon unit, as well as being extremely dangerous. Gene stealers, on the other hand, while also being dangerous, play a much different role. They begin an infection. This infection is not noticeable at first, but it is transferred simply by touching an individual. Later, if this individual touches another, they too will be infected. Once infected, the virus will be passed on to the child of said individuals. This child will be the slightest bit mutated, perhaps not even noticeably so. Once this child matures and has a child, the infection will continue to grow, until eventually the offspring of these generations will be full mutants, and if not stopped, will start something called a gene stealer cult, which we will talk about in another video. Once it is felt that the planet is prepared, a psychic call will go out to the fleet in which they will launch the attack. At this point, the fleet is likely too close to the planet for reinforcements to be called or for warp travel to be possible due to the shadow in the warp. Once arrived at the planet, the fleet will usually begin with an initial bombardment of spore mines and mycetic spores. These spores will alter the planet's environment, making it more suitable for absorption, and others will contain Tyranid organisms. Some of these organisms will wait for the orders to attack, and others will burrow into the ground, planting spores to create massive capillary towers that span to the upper atmosphere. Reclamation pools will then form around these towers, which will then be used to transfer biomass back to the fleet and the Norn Queen. Once the assault is launched, the lictors and gene stealers will burst out of hiding and attack vital defense points upon the planet, including infrastructure, leaders, and anything they deemed highly important. After this, the fleet will follow with an all-out assault. Waves upon waves of organisms will be thrown into the enemy as the Tyranids fall upon a planet in the millions. Towering nightmares will rain down and wreak havoc upon the planet. The Tyranids will consume any organic matter within sight and leave nothing alive. For less militant planets, the Tyranids will mostly only employ the use of gene stealers, lictors, and smaller ground troops like hormigants, termagants, and ripper swarms, with warrior broods to maintain synapse. Similar to the orcs, once a planet is fully infested by the Tyranids, even if the defenders repel the attacks and destroy the Hive fleet's main ship, the planet will likely be too far infected and in need of an exterminatus. Now we shall go over some of the Tyranid organisms. The main troops for a Tyranid force will consist of the Gaunt breed. This is made up of hormigants, termagants, and gargoyles. Hormigants commonly employ a ranged weapon called flesh borers. This weapon produces beetles that will burrow into one's flesh and eat them from the inside. The termagant is the main flesh wall for the Tyranid force, wielding scything talons that cut flesh to ribbons. Gargoyles are basically hormigants with wings. Next, we have two medium-sized organisms, called Raveners and Tyranid warriors. The Tyranid warrior is one of the most important bioforms, acting as a synapse creature to direct the smaller troops. They are similar to that of a squad leader. The Ravener is a variant of Tyranid warrior, not acting as a synapse creature though. They burrow into the ground and strike at enemy lines from beneath, tearing them to pieces. Moving up, we will look at the Zoanthrope and the Venomthrope. Created using harvested Eldar DNA, the Zoanthropes are the main psychic force of an attacking Hive fleet. Using psychic powers, they levitate across the battlefield and blast their enemies into ruin. The Venomthropes are a living chemical weapon. Each of their tentacles dripping with poison and large backs emitting clouds of venomous gas. They provide cover for the Tyranids as well as choking out enemies. Next, we have the Carnifex and the Tyranifex. A Carnifex is a horrifying wrecking ball of an organism. They sport shells thicker than ceramite and massive crushing claws that can rip apart vehicles with ease. The Tyranifex act as living artillery guns. They are as tough and defended as a fortress, and their massive biocannons rival that of a Leman Russ battle tank. Moving forwards, we have the Trigon and the Moloch. The Trigon is similar to that of a massive Ravener. They burrow through the earth and emerge behind enemy lines, creating tunnels for the ground troops to pass through. The Moloch acts similarly, burrowing under the ground, but its main wave attack is its massive mouth. It will swallow its victim as it emerges from the earth. Now, let's take a look at some leader organisms. The most common being the Hive Tyrant, and the most important being the Swarmlord. The Hive Tyrants serve as the main battlefield commanders of a Tyranid army. They are massive and wield giant bone swords and bioweapons. They come in many variants, some having wings and carry an array of weapons, as well as being potent psychers. They are smart, tactile, and horrifying foes. The Swarmlord. A Swarmlord is the most powerful synaptic creature that exists within the Tyranid species. To a Swarmlord, a Hive Tyrant is as lowly as a Hormigant. Throughout the galaxy, the Swarmlord is known as Tyrant's Lord of the Hive Mind, the Herald of the Great Devourer, and the Destroyer of the Kala Empire. The Swarmlord is also immortal, as if it is ever killed, the Hive Mind will recreate it with its exact memories and experiences. The Swarmlord possesses more mental autonomy from the hive mind than any other Tyranid organism, including hive tyrants, and its connection with the hive mind is so strong it can emerge amongst any hive fleet, transcending any physical limitations separating the different fleets. The Swarmlord has eons of battle experience and bloodshed to draw upon. As weapons, the Swarmlord wields 4 bone swords, crackling with disruptive bioelectrical power that are capable of slicing through adamantium and even force fields as if they were nothing. They differ from commonly seen Tyranid bone swords in that each saber-like blade has a crystalline growth, a mineral not indigenous to the Milky Way galaxy, at its core that partially protrudes through the blade's serrated surface. The Swarmlord can parry with these sabers at such a speed that his foes find it all but impossible to inflict a hit on the creature. Now, the largest known Tyranid organism, the Hierophant. The Hierophant is a bio-titan, rivaling that of the Imperium's warlord titans or the Eldar's revenants. It is a thing of nightmares, wielding massive biocannons and crushing anything beneath it with gargantuan limbs. It is indestructible and unstoppable. There are 3 main Tyranid hive fleets in history. There are many other hive fleets, but for the sake of time, we will talk about these 3. Hive Fleet Behemoth, Hive Fleet Kraken, and Hive Fleet Leviathan. Hive Fleet Behemoth was the first fleet discovered by the Imperium, and the first to invade the galaxy, being the one that attacked McCraig, but was destroyed at that battle. It later has splintered off into the Crimson Maw, the Court of the Nephilim King, and the Cortex Strain. Hive Fleet Kraken was the second fleet to invade the galaxy. They sparked the second tyrannical war within the Imperium and fought against the Eldar craft world Yandin, almost wiping out the Eldar. They were fought back by the Ultramarines within the Imperium and upon Yandin by Prince Uriel. It has since been splintered, but not without causing irreversible damage to the galaxy. Lastly, we have Hive Fleet Leviathan, which I'll read off of the wiki. Hive Fleet Leviathan was the third and largest Tyranid incursion into the Milky Way galaxy in 997.M41, and marked the start of the ongoing Third Tyrannic War for the Imperium of Mankind. Less than 5 standard years after the defeat of Hive Fleet Kraken in the Second Tyrannical War, Lord Inquisitor Cryptman noted the telltale signs of yet another Tyranid invasion in 997.M41. He implemented the Cryptman census, burning out dozens of astropaths in the attempt to contact scores of worlds on every fringe of the Imperium. Slowly, the responses, and lack of them, formed a pattern, and the venerable Inquisitor was able to chart the course of the Tyranids' lightest hive fleet to arrive in the Milky Way galaxy. Codenamed Leviathan by Imperial savants, this time the Tyranids were approaching from below the galactic plane, attacking from 2 points spaced wide apart in the shape of a closing pair of jaws, cutting off large portions of the galaxy from the warp travel or astropathic communication. At a great cost in human life, a combined force of Planetary Defense Force troops, 2 regiments of the Imperial Guard, the Ultramarines, and Mortificators chapters of Astartes, and a Death Watch kill team under the command of Inquisitor Cryptman crushed the left half of the Leviathan on the world of Tarsus Ultra, destroying the Tyranids nearest to Terra, and re-establishing astropathic contact with the world between Leviathan's jaws. The Imperium had won its first victory. Yet Leviathan continued to carve its bloody path through the Imperium. Perhaps Leviathan's main goal was the vital forge world of Gyphone 4, home of the Legio Gryphonicus, Titan Legion. Cryptman knew he had to slow down the Hive Fleet's advance to buy time for the Imperial Navy's battle fleets, Solar and Tempestus, to muster. With grim finality, he ordered a cordon to be established. Every world within was to be evacuated and undergo immediate exterminatus wherever possible, thus causing the Tyranids to expend their forces for little gain, the exterminatus denying them valuable biomass to replenish themselves. With one stark, callous decision, the Inquisitor had inflicted the Imperium's worst act of genocide upon its own since the Horus Heresy. Cryptman was denounced as a radical and a traitor when migrating orcs claimed a score of former human worlds. He was stripped of his title and cast from the Inquisition by his brethren. Yet Cryptman still had loyal allies within the Death Watch, and incepted a plan to halt Leviathan without the loss of further human life. When a Genestealer-infested Space Hulk drifted from the warp, members of the Death Watch loyal to Cryptman captured a brood in stasis. Using the brood of captured live Genestealers, the Inquisitor engineered a Tyranid invasion within the orc-held Octarius system, very close to Leviathan's advance. The crowded orc cities, so teeming with life, were the source of a huge orcish infestation and soon drew the entity of Leviathan into the tight cluster of orc star systems known as the Orc Empire of Octarius. The plan worked, and both races are now thoroughly involved with destroying each other in what has become known as the Octarius War. One thing is certain, each race thrives on war, and there remains the possibility that if the Tyranids emerge victorious, the Imperium shall have to face a threat far greater than before. As in a victory unlike other races, Tyranids effectively lose no military strength or resources, their casualties and still living warrior strains reabsorbed by invading Hive ships, along with the remains of the conquered worlds. Thus, every victory has no repercussions, only benefits. This also means that the Tyranids will assimilate vast quantities of strong, survivable orc DNA that makes the orcs such successful survivors and tenacious opponents, and incorporate it into their own bioconstructs. Indeed, worlds on the edge of the conflict have begun to record captures of Tyranid assault organisms larger than ever before. The implication of Krypton's manipulation on this alien threat are too horrible to contemplate. A shadowy council within the Imperium called the Strategic Collective has been analyzing all details of the Tyranid invasions and have drawn a conclusion as stark as it is terrifying. The fleets faced by the Imperium to date are but parts of a far greater whole, and this whole will be arriving at the Imperium's borders within less than a Terran century. They estimate that mobilization levels will need to be increased by a minimum of 500%. Effectively including every able-bodied man, woman, and child on every world in Segmentus Solar, Obscurus, and Tempestus to have even a hope of stopping the Tyranids. So now that we have discussed the lore of the horrifying Tyranids, let's do a workout to try and become the apex predator and serve the hive mind. Today's workout is going to hit every muscle. If we want to adapt and become the top of the food chain, we will need to be strong in every aspect, so we'll be doing strength exercises for our compounds and hypertrophy for the isolations. The workout is actually sort of one that I do, just with a few extra exercises. It is as follows: 3x6 squats, with 4x10 leg extensions, Nordic curls, and calf raises, 3x6 bench press, 4x10 machine flies, bicep curls, 3x6 overhead press with 4x10 lateral raises, superset with bent over lateral raises, 3x6 deadlifts with 4x10 chin-ups, then ending with 4x10 tricep pushdowns. Let's get to it. So there's the workout. I hope you guys enjoyed that, and I hope you enjoyed the lore as well. I think the Tyranids are super cool, super scary, and I'm excited to see what they do with them in the lore. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. As always, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I would really appreciate it. At 100 subscribers, I'll be doing the 100 Chicken Nugget Challenge, as well as a giveaway for a Warhammer character from Games Workshop. Just pretty much any character under $50. So stay tuned for that as well, for sure. And as always, if you have any suggestions, any criticisms, anything, just leave them in the comments, and I'll always reply. I'll always see them. So I love you guys. All right, well, I love you guys. Work hard out there and stay jacked.